Welcome to E3 Alliance's Road to Recovery webinar, a priority playbook for your school. This is our third time to share the playbook. Our first two webinars, we shared the playbook and some examples. Today, we will share the updated playbook and even more examples from each category. Before getting started, I do want to let you know that we will be providing the slides, recording, and roadmap to all participants, both in the chat today and also in a follow-up. If you have not done so already, please add your first name, role, and location to the chat so we can create a Road to Recovery community of learners. If you have questions, please use our Q&A feature and we'll answer a few towards the end of the webinar today. Also, please engage with our social media platforms, tweet or post, and tag @E3 Alliance. Now I'm going to hand it off to Matt to get us started.
Great. Thank you for kicking it off, Terry. And thanks to all of you for joining us today and messaging in the chat. We're excited to have leaders from all over joining us today. Sharing the priority playbook today will be myself, Matt Pope, and my colleagues, Terry Clement and Amy Havard. Also from our team, we have Leticia Maynard and Lori Davis, who will be our moderators by engaging with you in the chat and sharing resources. We're excited to guide you through this work today and the opportunity to learn and collaborate on the road to recovery. We are part of a team at E3 Alliance, a nonprofit based in Austin, Texas, whose mission is to transform education systems through data and collaboration so all students succeed. Today, we will share the priority playbook and dive into each category with what you must do to move in the direction of recovery and transformation. We shared examples in both previous webinars, and today we will have brand new examples from each category of the playbook to help you with how to do this work. These examples can help you see what the work could look like, so either you can get started or enhance the work you are already doing. We will also provide you with a roadmap tool to plan out this work with your team. We know COVID-19 has impacted all parts of our lives, but more specifically, it has challenged everything we think about schooling and learning. The playbook is a tool to help guide your school towards recovery and transformation by providing you a structure for planning, help you focus on what is most important, and support you with how to get this work done. Please review the chart on the screen that has implications for school leaders. We were in the crisis stage with emergency remote learning starting in March until the end of last school year. We are now in re-entry, which is in the transition phase and moving towards recovery. As we move towards recovery and transformation, the lessons we have learned over the last 6 months can drive us to innovate and improve on how we do schooling. Next, Amy is going to introduce us to the priority playbook.
Thanks, Matt. So let's learn about the priority playbook. This playbook can support you wherever you are in the journey towards transformation. First, leading forward is focused on strong leadership that will guide the transformation. Leading forward is the pathway which runs through all other parts of this playbook. Next, we must continue to ensure a safe place where our staff, students, and families are healthy and secure throughout the year. Then we must send a message that we are all in this together by ensuring our students and staff are attending and engaged in our community, no matter what modality they chose. Once we have them attending, we then need to focus on continually reigniting our school culture to make sure everyone feels like they belong. And finally, we close the gaps for all learners by providing them with equitable, high-quality instruction. Today, our webinar will include more details about each of these with examples of what they might look like in practice. Always remember, you must start with strong leadership and continue that leadership to foster a safe place, get people there, make them whole, and then grow them academically. That is the priority for recovery. Before we dig into the first playbook category, I want to let you know how today's webinar content is structured. For each section, the first 2 slides will be from the actual priority playbook that is available for you to download. Following the playbook slides for each priority, we will show a few examples of what this can look like in a school. So let's start with our first playbook category, leading forward. Why is leadership its own category in our playbook? Leadership is the capacity to translate your vision into reality. By now, we all know that change will continue to happen all throughout this year. Leading forward through these changes is what school leaders must get right. For the next few minutes, I will share some things to consider when leading forward. Leading forward starts by collaborating frequently with a representative leadership team to check the pulse of the school community and ensure that the decisions that are made match the current conditions and needs. Leading forward also means that you remain focused on what you can control by building a mindset of continuous improvement and making sure those things that were important before, your mission, your vision, goals, and improvement plans, continue to always ground the work of your campus, even in times of change and stress. Leading forward also means using communication as the most frequent and powerful tool in your leadership toolbox. In the midst of uncertainty and stress, staff, students, and families feel most supported when they understand what is going on and know that information is being shared as transparently as possible. Communication should be frequent, explicit, and travel in many different modes that reach all stakeholders. Next up are 2 examples that illustrate what leading forward might look like on a campus. So skim this leadership team agenda from Trailway Middle School before I highlight a few of the ways in which they are leading forward. So you can see that this agenda provides the routines and structures, including suggested pacing, that guide their frequent collaboration. You can see the pulse check is a standing item. This is a chance for leaders to share what they have heard from around the campus so that everyone can stay aware of how staff, students, and families are feeling. The pulse check is especially important in times when new systems, procedures, or major changes are implemented in response to new challenges that have come up. You will also see that culture and instruction are set agenda items. These keep the team focused on leading the important work and prevents them from spending the whole meeting discussing one item. The discussion for each section is broken down to check on previous action items and then discuss new concerns. This helps the leadership team stay accountable to each other for the ongoing work they have agreed to perform and to build a mindset of continuous improvement. Things are not dropped or forgotten. When faced with a constant stream of information and updates to district procedures, here's an example of how one principal decided to structure her frequent, transparent communication to keep all staff up to date. Read through her virtual staff huddle structure. So you can see for 20 minutes at the end of every workday, the staff joins a short huddle via Zoom from their classroom, whether that's on campus or from home. The virtual staff huddle gives the principal the chance to highlight a small celebration. We know we all need those, while also providing a quick opportunity for a check-in with someone else, and that she can share any new information that has come up during the course of the day. Which, with so much change and uncertainty, the short daily huddle has provided comfort and trust that leaders are being open and transparent with all staff. Having it virtually means that staff can participate safely, even those who are working virtually due to medical restrictions. Next, Matt will share with you how you can lead forward while still maintaining a safe place.
Thanks, Amy. As we lead the transformation, we'll need to make sure our schools are safe and secure for all of our stakeholders. A safe place is all about having a healthy and secure environment for students, staff, and families. In order to do this, we will need to continuously consider all of their needs. We do this by gathering input from all of the groups and evaluate the impact of any decision on each stakeholder group. When we have input and have evaluated the impact for each stakeholder, we utilize continuous improvement to plan for continued physical safety. Once we see movement patterns of people in the building, we can adjust the patterns and visitor procedures to minimize contact. Family events can be planned with either virtual options or staggered attendance times for in-person. Additionally, we can continue to improve our scheduling for both virtual and in-person schooling to provide the most differentiated and equitable support for all students and families. What could this work from a safe place look like? Well, here's an example of continuously considering all stakeholders' needs and an option for virtual family nights. Check out Devonville High School's State of Our School. Devonville High School saw the need for extending the benefits of an open house as an ongoing event throughout the year. Instead of one open house, they have a meetup monthly. They call this open house their State of Our School. The flyer lets everyone know what topics are planned, and it is displayed on their website, posted on their social media channels, and emailed to all stakeholders. The content of these meetings is developed each month by the campus leadership team, who collects input through a series of frequent surveys. Here's exactly how Devonville High School is continuously gathering input from all stakeholders to develop their State of Our School meetings. The school's plan includes weekly surveys emailed out for all stakeholders, as well as 3 to 5 randomized interviews from each stakeholder group. DHS created groups for the family and community, faculty and staff, and students. The questions will vary for each group and each topic. For example, the last 2 weeks in September, this campus will ask questions about current operations, as well as the plan for return to in-person learning. This information will be compiled, analyzed, and prepared for sharing during the next State of Our School planning meeting. This is the agenda for a State of Our School monthly meeting that outlines the important information that was gathered and what will be covered and what actions are needed. Take a few moments to scan their agenda. On top of discussing safety and attendance, State of Our School reports also measure and communicate additional elements of the school, like culture and student learning. This transparency and consistent messaging, especially about safety, ensures all stakeholders have a voice, they are heard, and decisions and plans are made in the best interest of all groups. Next in our road to recovery, we'll need to send a message of encouragement for all stakeholders to attend and participate in the learning community. So if you're leading a school right now, you probably are empathetic and understanding of all the attendance concerns that are happening in schools. But why does attendance matter so much? Well, if students aren't participating, they aren't learning. And learning is the purpose of any school. And even though recent months have required us to drastically shift our thinking around attendance, there's no denying the power of the message that we are in this together, all of us. So how can we support attendance? In order to effectively support student and staff attendance, your attendance team should be meeting frequently to review data and update intervention and communication plans to meet the current needs of individuals identified by the data. In previous Road to Recovery webinars, we shared that the attendance team should look drastically different this year than previous years. So it can no longer be an assistant principal and the attendance clerk. We must include the principal, assistant principal, attendance clerk, counselors, social workers, the nurse, the head custodian, other essential staff to help us guide decision-making that will impact all stakeholders. In addition, all stakeholders should be reminded of the guidance provided by your campus or district on when it's safe to attend school and when they should stay home. Just like every other place you go and they do the checklist before you can enter, there should be a checklist for when people should come to your school. Clear guidance will ensure everyone is better able to make decisions that will result in a safer school without missing more instruction than necessary. In addition, use a coverage plan for staff that ensures instruction continues for students when staff are out. This coverage plan should take into consideration safety guidelines as well as legal work requirements and available staff. Your coverage plan will need to be updated frequently as things change and as you discover what works and what doesn't. Now that the year has started and we are experiencing the attendance concerns that were anticipated, ensure you are collecting and monitoring the attendance data that you need to drive decision-making, continuous improvement, and support plans. Attendance systems this year will be more robust than in years past, so support your staff by providing clear roles, responsibilities, and written directions that everyone can follow to do their part in collecting and monitoring necessary data. I'm going to provide you with 3 examples of we're in this together. First is an example of a school who wanted to clearly articulate roles, responsibilities, and timelines. Take a moment to study the table. This table outlines the campus level data they collect, including official attendance data, participation in the listening lunches, assignment completion, club participation, and student check-in logs. Then the campus has a plan for how they are going to monitor that data by the attendance clerk, the attendance team, and grade level team leads. All of this data is important to inform the decisions that the attendance team will be making to support students. Pecan Elementary School reviews multiple points of data. They review official data by students, groups, and schedules. They also review assignment participation, completion, and summaries of scheduled check-ins with students. Take a look at the principal, Ms. Roberts' email. The principal, Ms. Roberts, sends this email weekly to her team leaders to ensure they take action on this data and their specific grade level data. The principal reports the official attendance data. She also reports informal data, including their assignment submittal and check-in log summaries. All of this information is critical for this school to determine how successful each student is doing in attending and engaging. When students are struggling, Pecan Elementary School has tiered levels of support and intervention they use to develop individualized support plans. Staff coverage is challenging during this time. Take a look at this plan with multiple layers of options for staff coverage. The plan provides layers of coverage to offer options for coverage depending on the availability of needed personnel. First, the expectations for teachers to maintain lesson plans and substitute plans are explicitly communicated and reinforced from the beginning of the year. This is important so that anyone providing coverage can continue instruction for students. The first option explains how a trusted substitute will be used for in-person classes if one is available. The district updated their substitute training and registration process to ensure substitutes were given safety training and they are restricting substitutes to only working at one campus. If a trusted substitute is not available or coverage is needed for virtual classes, the front office staff moves on to the second option to arrange for a partner teacher to cover the teacher that is out. The partner teacher covers the in-person and/or their virtual students. At this campus, class sizes are still small, so classes are often able to combine and still maintain social distancing. However, if a trusted substitute or partner coverage is not able to meet the need, then the third option is put in place. In option 3, staff are asked to provide coverage. This could range from a variety of multiple people covering for that teacher throughout the day, which could include teacher assistants, the librarian, elective teachers, instructional coaches, office staff, or other support staff. The front office staff who is arranging substitutes will consult the availability list to develop a coverage plan for the day. This coverage plan shows who is covering the class at what times during the day for each modality. The plan is emailed to all affected as well as the team lead so they all know who should be providing coverage throughout the day. The office staff, this is key, is responsible for inputting the coverage plan and information into a spreadsheet. This will keep track of how often an individual is asked to provide coverage and ensure the burden is evenly distributed and those providing coverage still have the time throughout the week to complete their work. Now I'm going to hand it off to Terry so she can lead us through a place to belong.
Thanks, Matt. Before we teach, our school culture has to be a place where everyone belongs. We know that a positive school culture is the foundation for the work of our schools. The culture provides an inviting, supportive, encouraging, and inclusive environment for all students and staff. As school leaders, we're the captains of our culture. Let your leadership of culture of your school be informed by the lessons we're learning from these current events we're living right now. Here are some ideas to help you prioritize this work. First, keep connections before content as the filter for your culture leadership work. Today, we're going to share an example of how to be deliberate and proactive in your alignment of communication with your culture content. Your beliefs, mission, vision, and values must connect and drive all the work. What are more ways we can keep the work strong throughout the year? Look for opportunities to strengthen relationships and enrich them among students, staff, and families. Find time for staff and students to have shared fun during and after the school day. During shared fun, we build stronger connections among and between each other. Engaging families has always been an important part of our school leadership, but current challenges, they've got us thinking differently, and we've got to find ways to engage our families and community even more since they're such critical members of our school community. Let's take a look at some culture examples. We're going to start first with keeping a deliberate and proactive alignment with our cultural content. In this example, Martin High School has created shared beliefs, vision and mission statements, and a shared set of values aligned with collective commitments. Take just a few moments to study the content of this school's culture. These are shown at every staff, student, and family meeting to ensure that everyone in the school community knows why they exist, how they're going to achieve success, and how they will behave. More importantly, Martin High School's leadership team uses this document to drive all decisions about the work that is being done in the school, any new initiatives, and their communication plan. For example, MHS wanted to implement virtual fun days at their school, The leadership team used this as their filter. They asked themselves, do virtual fun days align with our beliefs? Check. Definitely aligns with positive relationships. Will it help us reach our mission and vision? Yes. And then they found that it connected also with their value and commitment about relationships. So they could move forward with implementing virtual fun days because it aligned so well with their culture. Centerville Elementary School here wanted to be sure that they scheduled time for staff and students to have strong relationships and shared fun, even when most of their students were learning remotely. The school created Pride Friday lunches, and they have a different schedule on Fridays to accommodate for this fun. I'll give you some time to see what they've planned here. Notice that the lunch begins with an opening from campus leaders to give expectations and provide an overview of the choices. Each staff member helps lead different choice groups based on student interest and the teacher's skills and talents. As you can see from the schedule, there's a dance party, a gaming club, trivia challenges, movies, art, etc. The lunch ends with a surprise staff member, which changes every week, who gives a special send-off for the weekend and displays a surprise. The surprise could be a song, a dance, video, etc. Hampton Intermediate School came up with a creative way to engage families while also creating collaboration time with families and school in between. Every Tuesday and Thursday, this school has an open virtual hangout with families. Different school staff like parent liaisons, administrators, counselors, social workers, they're all scheduled to attend. Families are encouraged to ask the school staff questions and bring up discussion topics. Meanwhile, the staff asks families for information about how things are going, what they're doing to support their students and their children during this time. This is also an opportunity for the school to provide information about what's coming up, feedback, input from families in attendance are all part of the conversation. There's also an opportunity for the school to preview things that are coming up and really make sure that things are communicating both ways. There are also some schools that are creating family neighborhood groups. These groups serve to connect families that live in relatively the same area and provide opportunities for outdoor, socially distanced conversations between and among families and students. To ensure that we're working to close the gaps, there's an urgency to provide equitable, high-quality instruction for all students. Let's continue diving deep into the practices that will get us there. The Priority Playbook reminds us that adjustments to curriculum should be strategic, allowing teachers to truly focus on the most essential content. Implementing deliberate systems of assessment is part of this. Norms as part of that system means that everyone in your school community knows what you value in terms of assessment and data, providing the specifics of what we believe are the must-dos. Whatever your system is for assessment on your campus, make sure that you're giving assessments of learning, including pre-assessments, ongoing formative assessments, and post-assessments for each instructional unit. Collect the data, ensuring its integrity using those norms, analyzing the data collaboratively, bringing all voices to the table, and then most importantly, do something in response to the data so that it's not just checking a box. How can we get this process to benefit students and continuously improve instruction? Leading with deliberate, effective assessment systems will inform our instructional practices as well. Remember that we want to implement evidence-based practices that favor acceleration over remediation and are always student-focused. Part of making sure our instruction is effective is engaging planning through technology that elevates our practice and also provides those personalized pathways for all students. Let's look at an example of system components for campus assessment norms. This is an add-on to a set of norms used for a specific grade band at one school. The leaders worked together in August to set these norms for virtual assessment. I'll give you a little time to review these assessment norms. Notice that the norms include a commitment to response and analysis. Also, it includes specifics about how different types of assessments are to be developed and facilitated. These norms are a critical part of a deliberate, effective assessment system. The integrity of their data will be strong, and they can use it to drive decision-making and continuous improvement. As well, it can elevate the instruction on this campus. Let's take a deeper look at how pre-assessment specifically can do just that. Here's a calendar for the next instructional month for this 4th grade math teacher. This teacher is teaching Unit 2 right now. Pre-assessment for Unit 3 will be on October 5th. This gives 4 days to analyze and use results because Unit 3 begins on October 12th. Midway through Unit 3, this teacher is already planning to pre-assess Unit 4, again providing that critical time to collaborate and plan for the next unit. Planning for pre-assessment in advance this way is the structure that will allow for student-focused unit design. Let's take a closer look at how this pre-assessment process works. In our previous webinars for the Priority Playbook, and remember, you can still reference those on our resource page when you get a link at the end of the time today. We looked closely at the process for studying and prioritizing standards. This teacher has completed this study and selected these 2 standards as the clear focus for this unit. Then a pre-assessment was developed. A short assessment, only 6 items, and it was facilitated according to those campus norms. The results were analyzed and 4 pathways were designed in response. For each standard, students either demonstrated mastery or not yet, employing that growth mindset language that the campus committed to. Based on these pathways, the students will be guided to partner with the teacher and personalize their own journey throughout this unit. Take a moment to look at the pathways that were designed using those pre-assessment results we just talked about. Notice that the first step for all pathways is analysis and goal setting. The teacher either meets with or provides video guidance for students to design their own pathway according to their results. This will vary based on modality and student needs. This process will definitely need to be more supported in earlier units, but consistent use of this same practice will empower students and engage them to become more autonomous learners. Students are guided to look at the results of their own pre-assessment, identify which 2 pathways are appropriate for them, and develop goals for the unit. If a student masters 4.4H, for example, but is not at mastery yet for 4.5A, then their pathway will be a combination of those 2 columns. All students will engage with the focus standards for this unit, just in different personalized ways. Integrating norms, pre-assessment, personalized pathways, and student empowerment through goal setting and self-monitoring are all practices that can be implemented in person, remote synchronous, remote asynchronous, or through a hybrid model. And they synergize high-quality evidence-based practices to ensure equitable opportunities for all students, so we can focus on closing the gap. Now that we've shared more examples to ignite the leadership of your schools as they're moving forward on the road to recovery, I'm going to ask Amy to share the Priority Playbook Roadmap tool to help you make your own plan for your school and your learning community. Amy?
Thanks, Terry. Deliberate and collaborative planning is the roadmap to doing anything well this year. To help you and your leadership team plan how to implement the priorities included in this playbook, we've created a downloadable roadmap. The link is being posted in the chat, or it just has been posted. But you can also find this roadmap at any time on our website, along with the Priority Playbook. This tool is intended to provide guidance and a workspace as your team determines how to put the priorities into action. Let's walk through what the tool looks like for one of those priorities we just discussed. So in the tool, there is a tab for each priority or section of the playbook. Your team can complete each section, or they can just jump to the tabs that best fit your needs right now. The following examples will be from the We're in This Together tab that will help you and your team plan to support student and staff attendance. In this tab, the first workspace you see is a place to plan what data your attendance team is collecting and reviewing. In the examples provided here, you can see that the tool shows what one school decided to collect to make sure they have a full picture of current student attendance. Not just their daily official attendance, but also those other measures that help the team gauge early warning indicators, and the reasons that students are missing are also included in their plan. Next, there are workspaces on this tab for planning the interventions that can be offered to support student attendance, and a space to plan how to provide effective coverage when staff are absent. Below that, there's a space to plan how the data you have identified in that earlier section will actually be collected, and a space to define the roles and responsibilities that all staff will play within your attendance system. Scrolling down to the bottom of the tab, there is a section that captures any action items that you've identified throughout the planning process. These action items will then be incorporated into the last tab that is your roadmap. On the last tab is the roadmap, a strategic planning space to prioritize and schedule the action items from each of those earlier tabs. Here you can see an example of how a few of the action items from those priorities have been copied over into the first section. Once all the action items are there, you determine the priority of each item. Once they're prioritized, you will be able to schedule them. Do they need to be accomplished in the next 30 days? By the end of the fall semester? Is this something you want to do in the spring? You will also identify the specifics of how that action item will be completed, the who, when, how, and what will you need to communicate about it. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Terry to field any questions that have come up while we've been going through the playbook.
Thanks, Amy. It does look like we have a few questions, so I'll ask Amy and Matt to join with me in collaborating and answering some of these questions. You know what? I'm going to ask Matt to address this one first. Matt, it looks like we do have a lot of school leaders that are really struggling with new attendance procedures. More specifically, they're asking about how do I navigate asking teachers to do the new work for complex attendance systems, and also at the same time help them keep their balance with already high levels of stress and anxiety. How can you help with those two things? Matt, do you have some input on that?
That's the million-dollar question. So this is, in schools we've already been supporting, this seems to be a theme and a struggle and a challenge. And the advice I would give is really look and make sure the system is documented that you are doing, to make sure it's as efficient as possible. So if it's not documented in detail, like the examples we showed, then there's probably some inefficiencies that are causing the stress or the overwhelming feeling that some staff are feeling currently. Another thing to look at and consider is also thinking through what things are causing the stress. What are we doing that may not actually be contributing in a positive way to improving attendance, but we just added it on as a layer of compliance that is actually working against what we wanted, which is to accurately capture attendance and get kids to engage and participate and attend every day. So document, detail, look for inefficiencies, but also ask the people doing it every day, the teachers, what could make it more efficient or what could make it improve so that it isn't so burdensome to them each day.
Excellent, thank you. And I really like that, Matt. What's going to keep that going is that communication and continuously improving. Agreed. Amy, let me ask you to see if you have some input for this question. There's a question about monitoring remote instruction. Like, how do you monitor and give feedback, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous? I'm sure everyone has kind of a different model going right now, but for example, a school where all lessons are asynchronous with videos, assignments, how would you do walkthroughs or monitor instruction and give feedback? Amy, do you have some guidance for that?
Sure. This is something we've already been talking to schools about over the last few weeks. So it is just like the attendance topic. It's definitely a very timely thing that's on everybody's minds. The important thing to do when you start thinking about monitoring instruction, whether it's synchronous, asynchronous, in person, or remote, is to think about what are the things that you absolutely want to see in your classrooms that will best serve your students. And so once you have that in mind, what are those expectations that all teachers should be doing in your classrooms? And at some schools I've seen that might have some technical aspects about the way that the asynchronous classroom is arranged or assignments are labeled, so there's consistency for students, but also making sure we're always pushing for equitable, high quality instruction. What are those instructional pieces or strategies that you also want to see in classrooms? So once you are clear about those expectations that you want to see across the board, you then have a list of things that you're looking for as you visit those asynchronous remote classrooms. So what we've been able to do with a few coaches is actually most of the leaders of the campus, the instructional coaches, the administrators, of course, have access, whether that's in Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever your learning management system is. But putting some time aside in your schedule every week for leaders to actually pull up that asynchronous classroom, use that checklist that you created to look for those common expectations that you hope to see. And then, of course, one thing that your leadership team needs to decide on is how you provide feedback to those teachers. As Matt mentioned when we were talking about the attendance procedures, there's definitely a lot of stress and new work that we are all taking on this year. So you want to make sure that feedback is both focused and effective, but also making sure that it happens in a way that teachers are able to incorporate that into new practice. And obviously, one thing I always like to see is that you definitely identify some positives if you are going to provide a constructive feedback as well. So that's what we've seen happening so far. That's also, what when we've been working with schools, that's what we've been coaching them to use, is that best practice of really aligning your expectations across classrooms and then aligning your observations to look for and give feedback on those expectations.
Thanks, Amy. I like what you said there. Two things. I like how you said to prioritize it and put it on your own schedule, just as you would have for walkthroughs normally, right? You have times in your calendars for walkthroughs. Schedule that time to go do that, that process of giving that feedback. And I know the only thing I would add is that looking at student work is a huge part of, really giving that feedback and seeing how is monitoring that instruction and see how are things going for instruction with kids. Absolutely. Thank you for that. We have time for just one more question, and I'll leave it open for Matt or Amy. If you have any advice, this is true. So many of our school leaders right now are in this position where they feel like they're leading two schools at once, remote and in person. Do you have any guidance or advice for just how to navigate that, how to keep your balance and be as successful as possible when leading two schools at once, which is what it feels like? Matt, do you have some guidance there?
Well, I mean, it's a whole new world for principals, and we are totally empathetic to the challenges and the struggles. And just the overwhelming sense of having to redo and recreate everything we do about schools. So first, like Terry said, I would advise anyone to make sure they're taking care of themselves first, because navigating and leading any system, much less a more complex system like we have this year, is going to take strong, healthy leaders. So making sure you're making time for yourself every day to do the things you enjoy that may not be school-related work, whether that's taking a walk, watching your favorite Netflix show. I'm into Dr. Pimple Popper at the moment, or doing your exercise regime, eating healthy, or enjoying time with your family and friends as safe as you can in the current situation. And then second, it goes back to something Amy mentioned with the walkthrough system, and we also mentioned with the attendance question, is make sure everything is documented and detailed so that everyone knows how the system is going to work, whether it's in person or virtual, and create as much alignment between both of those modalities as possible. So you're not necessarily leading two different schools, you're leading two different modalities, but the school is the same no matter the modality. So that's advice I would give. Amy, do you have anything to add there, or Terry?
The only thing I was going to add is what you said at the end, is just really enforcing that alignment, as especially as we know students will have the choice in some areas to move back into the building or move back to virtual as the situation changes throughout the year. You want to make sure that those two schools are actually just two halves of the same school. You want to make them as consistent as possible so that teachers and students still feel that collective belonging to one entity as they potentially switch back and forth, or as they have a friend who's remote while they're in person. So just definitely keeping that alignment both in procedure, systems, and what's happening, but also that alignment in the culture, in the belonging of the schools.
Thank you, Amy. I agree with everything both of you shared. The only thing I'll add is when Matt was talking about taking care of yourself and keeping your balance, my favorite analogy there, which is interesting because so few of us are getting to be on airplanes now, but what do they tell you when you get on the airplane? If something happens, put your own mask on first so that you're able to care for and support everyone else. So keep that in mind. School leaders, you're doing great work. You're important, and it's important to keep your balance and take care of yourself so you can lead these schools through a great road to recovery. Thank you, Matt and Amy. I'm going to ask Matt now to close us out for the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. So in closing, please use this playbook and roadmap to help you on the road to recovery and transformation. We're going to share the recording with you, the playbook, the planning tool, and previous webinar documents as well. Share these tools with other campus and district leaders that you know. We know this is hard work and everyone is struggling to keep up with the news and the latest guidance while adapting everything you do. That is why it is important to build partnerships with organizations, and we can be that partner for you. Contact Leticia Maynard about our partnership opportunities and ask about a complimentary coaching session with your team to help you and your needs as you use this priority playbook. We will have another Road to Recovery webinar on Tuesday, December 1st at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we will leverage our end of semester messaging and lessons learned from the fall to plan for a strong spring launch. So in the December webinar, we'll really be guiding you through how to transition and start your new semester in the spring strong in the new reality and hopefully a brand new world of 2021. We're 2.5 months away, we can make it. The registration has been added to the chat. We will also send it out via email. Share the registration with your friends so they can get this great experience and tools as well. Also added to the chat is information about our online learning series called New World, New Work. We have learning sessions focused on attendance, culture, and instruction. We hope you check it out. Thank you for attending today. We are grateful you decided to spend an hour with us today and hope these tools help you with the challenging work ahead. We look forward to collaborating with you on this road to recovery. Have a great day.